can't remember when I first started hearing about Promising Young Woman, but because it was released in the States in January and it's finally coming to the UK, finally everybody's gonna get a chance to see this film. And oh my god, this film is astonishing. And I think one of the things that really strikes me about this film, I've seen it twice now, is the fact that it's so angry, but it uses anger in such a fascinating way. It simmers with anger and with rage. And it's not the sort of big, wild explosions, gun toting, or tons of killing type of anger. It kind of falls into a lot of people are talking about it as a revenge film or as a rape revenge film. And it is, but it isn't. It's trying to do something, it's trying to address an anger that's always there, that's always sort of pulsating underneath the surface. And it's prickly, it's acidic, and it just consumes you. And I think Cassie, Cassandra, the lead character, who's played by Carey Mulligan in the film, is a perfect performance of that anger that sort of burns underneath the skin for a very long time, that has no name, or a grief that has no name. Because what's interesting about her is that the central relationship in Cassie's life is one that has no societal name for it. There is no way to grieve a best friend. There is a way to grieve parents, there is a way to grieve partners, but how do you grieve someone who is such a big part of you, but that everyone else just sees as, well, that's your buddy, that's your pal.
Yeah.
There is an intensity of emotion in the film that is never particularly articulated directly, but it's there. It's there in the images, it's there in the music, it's there in Carey Mulligan's performance, it's there in the way that she talks. The dialogue in this film is so savage and so smart. The way that certain phrases and turns of phrases and expressions are turned around and given a meaning that it almost feels like it's speaking in a secret language to women in particular. And there's a way that its central thesis, I would say, is a really complicated one to address, and it's a really complicated one to see so directly, to be confronted by it. And it's even difficult to talk about, because it's basically saying what we kind of know, what we see every day, and it's that the promise of men is more important than the lives of women. And how hard is it to make a film that explores that and still works as a piece of art, as a piece of entertainment? It's such a fine, difficult line to walk, and I can't. And it's not perfect. Almost no films are perfect, and it has issues, and some people have criticized it for issues. But I cannot personally, even though I see them, there is such intense smarts in the film, and every little bit of it articulates visually and cinematically that very particular brand of everyday anger that every single woman, I think, has to live with every single day. And it's a film that I would be able to watch many times, and every single time I think it would have perhaps a different shade of a reading, and will definitely have that same effect where it just sort of grabs your heart in its fist and it doesn't let go for the entire duration of the film.
So if a friend came to you now, came to your house and told you that they thought something bad had happened to them the night before.
Cassie.
Something bad.
It was years ago.
What would you say? What would you say?
Ugh. A little weird.
Would you roll your eyes behind her back and dismiss the whole thing as drama?
I don't know why you're mad at me. Okay, I'm not the only one who didn't believe it. If you have a reputation for sleeping around, then maybe people aren't gonna believe you when you say something's happened. I mean, it's crying wolf.
You thought I was crying wolf?
Cassandra is confronting a lot of people from her past, and this scene in particular, she's confronting an old classmate of hers from university, someone who knew what had happened, what had transpired with her best friend Nina, and not only did nothing, but also indirectly participated in covering it up, in dismissing it, in also ignoring the plight and the complaint. Complaint seems like a small word for this case, but the complaints by Nina and the repercussions on Nina and Cassie herself, who in this film drops out of medical school despite being the top student. So there's clear effects and there's very clear kind of repercussions. But here, I mean, when I was talking about the savagery of the language and how smart the script is, this scene is kind of perfectly articulating that, because there are so many expressions there that we're so used to. And I think one of the really complicated and really beautiful things about Promising Young Women is how it shows a lot of internalized misogyny through the female characters. This scene in particular, you can hear the barely contained anger in Carey Mulligan's performance, can't you? Where she's talking to someone who she would assume understand where she's coming from, and she's not getting it. She's absolutely not getting it. So it's a lot about self-preservation as much as it is about revenge and about a wider rape culture and a wider language that comes alongside with rape culture. And that's hard to hear and it's really hard to see. And I think that clip kind of illustrates that very, very difficult fine line that exists kind of in those conversations and frankly in reality as well.
I think the color palette that she used, Emerald, in both, in, you know, she's written this, she's directed it. She was like 7.5 months pregnant when she directed it or something ridiculous. I just think the color palette that she's used to really contradict all those things that you were saying about the themes and things. You know, it's dark. It's really dark. But the color palette is bubblegum. It's comic book. It's so clever in terms of that kind of contradiction and the way that it really just, I don't know, it kind of, the vibrancy of it, I think is such a clever way of it looking, whilst the subject matter obviously, you know, just being incredibly dark, but really important to address. It addresses so many things in such a brilliant, creative way.
Totally. I think the music, the color palette, you're so spot on. The nails that Cassie has, which are all multicolored and probably, you know, one of the most budget and also really great Halloween costumes that will happen necessarily in October.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of a very deliberate contrast. And I interviewed Emerald for a magazine a few months ago, and we spoke about this, and it's very, very deliberate. I think she's a very fascinating, very deliberate writer and director, where it is basically offering up a contrast of, yes, Cassie's a very girly girl. It's very bubblegum pink. It's very light touch and pastel colors. It's very poppy music. Does that make her story less valuable? No.
Exactly, yeah.
I think it's also addressing visually the way that we've been taught to instantly dismiss anything that is sort of coded as girly, even as women. You know, we've been taught that, well, you know, if she's a girly girl, or if this is bubblegum pop, or it's just, you know, she dresses a certain way or performs her femininity in a certain way, then, oh well, it doesn't matter. It's kind of also in that clip as well. And the film does exactly that through its visual language, through the way that it sounds and it looks.
Do you think that goes as far as well as some of the casting? So in terms of like Adam Brody as Jerry, you know, you think Gossip Girl, you think, you know, the OC, those kind of characters as well. And even as well, you know, as far as Christopher Mintz-Plasse, you know, I Am McLovin, all that kind of thing. Do you think those were deliberate choices because of the association those actors have with characters they've previously played?
I'm so glad you bring that up, because I love that element of the film, and I know it's deliberate as well, because Emerald has spoken about it. And again, just so smart, because nothing that's in Promising Young Women, and I think one of the kind of misconceptions about the film from the marketing of it is that Cassie's not really going out after guys and you know, tricking them in any way. She's not, you know, killing them off, or she's not, enacting any sort of terrible plot against them. She's just letting them be themselves.
Yeah.
She's being completely passive. And the casting of these guys, Adam Brody, and the rest of them, it's because we're so used to seeing them in romantic comedies and in sitcoms and comedic settings. And actually, what a lot of rom-coms and a lot of comedies have taught us is that these behaviors are okay. They're fine. Pop culture has kind of given us that recipe, and now we're seeing it from a totally different point of view. And we're seeing, and some of the most stunning moments in this film is where these guys, these nice guys, self-professed nice guys, suddenly realize that someone has caught them in a moment where their niceness falls away, and then enters the kind of self-preservation mode, the mode of like, oh, I've been caught out.
Yeah.
Or I've not even been caught out in public, but someone has seen or
Yeah, they've
seen
seen
through
behind the
this
mask.
veneer.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Yeah.